Time, weather,
Welcome to the Chey and Pav podcast experience.
You're listening to the Chey and Pav Show, teachers talking teaching.
Where two middle school teachers sharing our reflections, insights about the topics that matter the most in the classroom. So hey, Pav, join us in the hallway or even the parking lot, or better yet, how about the staff room?
Welcome to episode 129 of the Chey and Pav Show. Thank you for joining us as we sit around the table to talk teaching. The summer is over and we are headed back to school, which means Chey and Pav are back to creating their regularly scheduled content. Today, Chey and I will think a little bit about our goals for this coming school year and some of the new things we'd like to try, perhaps even some things we'd like to discontinue. Before we get into this conversation, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Pav Wander. I make up half of this partnership. My other half is right here next to me. And if you know anything about Chey and Pav, you know he's going to introduce himself.
Because it's showtime! And I'm Chey.
Hi, Chey.
How are you?
It is showtime. You are absolutely right.
I can't believe these things still work. The buttons. When was episode 128? Like 2011?
It was a while ago. It was at the beginning of the summer. We actually did take a summer off, which is like unheard of for Chey and Pav.
We took a summer off of podcasting.
Yeah, we took a summer off of podcasting. I didn't just lay in bed reading books all day, although I did a lot of that.
You read a lot of books also.
I did read a lot this summer, which was very nice. Enjoyed the country, did a little traveling, saw a lot of family, had a lot of fun. I mean, it was a great summer overall.
And we're going back?
Apparently.
To work?
That's what we do.
Like in schools? And that's coming up soon?
Well, we were there all week.
Should I have done any prep work?
So what were you doing?
Well, Pav, as I forget how to podcast, I'm so thankful that you have this brilliant black line master with all of the words explicitly written out. And I see this section here called banter. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to banter on this whole idea of the week before.
Yeah,
coming to school. Because, Pav, I know you want to talk about what are some of our goals for the year, but I wanted to talk a lot on this episode, actually, about how I prepped for the year.
Sure.
More so, like my goals are part of that preparation, but I said, because you and I have had some really interesting dialogue about the preparation before the school year, because, of course, this comes down into contractual obligations, which I'm always reminded of Practical Wisdom by Barry Schwartz that will always tell you the people that are really good at their job know when to bend the rules for the greater good. Mm-hmm. Doing the right things for the right reasons often doesn't always match perfectly with our job description, or it is not identified in our job description. And this notion of coming in early or coming in to be prepared, for me, has always been critical. I actually enjoy, Pav. This is almost like a podcast episode now. It's not even a banter. You'd have to cut me off. Tell me that I haven't followed the rules.
We can, make this the episode. I can just change the title. I haven't actually published it yet. So, I mean, if we want to talk about the prep, because you're right, a lot goes into it. And I know that some of the things that you've already said, I want to touch upon, and I'm already thinking about how I'm going to be speaking when it's my turn to speak, which it's not right now. So I'm going to give the mic back to you.
As you're talking about how it's not your turn to speak.
That's right. So we can dive into this. So please take your time and say everything that you want to say. I'm here to listen.
Well, now that my train of thought has been completely derailed.
You're talking about the contractual obligations, Barry Schwartz, practical wisdom, setting up the classroom.
I was just wanted to talk about, because coming and preparing all 5 days doesn't in it of itself mean that you're more prepared than, say, a teacher that's not in the building. We know that teachers prepare and get sort of fired up differently. So maybe that means you're not in the building. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing work. Doesn't necessarily mean you haven't been engaging in your own learning throughout the summer. I was just going to comment that for me, there's real peace of mind being physically there for 5 days. Now, some days aren't as productive as most, although, as I'll talk about later, I do plan what I want to accomplish in every single day. But when we were sort of joking about being ready for next year, for me, it has always been important to be there for the 5 days. Even if I wasn't necessarily super productive, there was, as I was telling, I was talking with the OA during her lunch break, and we were just having a conversation.
Office administrator.
Yes. And she was saying, do you need to be here Friday? I said, I don't need to be here Friday, but if something goes horribly wrong Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll blame myself for not having come in Friday, the previous Friday. So I said, I'm coming in tomorrow, although I actually don't need to come in, just for peace of mind, so that if something did go wrong in the first week, I can say, but I was here every day. I did everything I could to prepare, and it still didn't work. Because it reminds me of, I don't explain education through sports. I never do. But I learned when I played sports is that winning doesn't owe you anything. And you can train as much as you want. You can prepare as much as you want. But winning doesn't care who you are. Winning doesn't like you. Winning doesn't know you. Winning doesn't care. And so let's say, per se, the teacher that doesn't prepare has a great first week. Mm-hmm. That even if I, came in fully prepared and I blew it, but at least I'd be able to say I was prepared. Might not have worked.
You were prepared for yourself. That this is what you are doing. You're preparing for yourself. You're not necessarily preparing for the students. Yes, you end up doing that. You end up getting things ready for the students in this. But I think that if you need 5 days before school starts to get yourself into the mindset of school and sort of transition from summer mode to back to school mode, then you owe it to yourself to do that. And I think that this is where it's not necessarily about practical wisdom. I think it's more about what you yourself, your own awareness, what you need in order to get ready for the next year. There have been years where I have come in for 2 days before the start of a school year because I'm in the same room that I was in the year before. I'm teaching the same grade that I was teaching the year before. I pretty much know what I want to do. I want to go in and tidy up and set up the desks and put them into groups and make sure that the room is tidy and clean and I know where everything is. And then there are some years like this year where I went in every single day and I probably could have used every single day for 5 days. And I probably could have even used another week to continue doing stuff. If if I had another couple of days, I would have found things to do. So it's more about peace of mind. Now I'm coming back to teach with you after being away for 3 years. And so I'm moving into a new classroom. I had gotten rid of a lot of my stuff. And so I had to either purchase or find materials for the classroom. And I had a lot of setup to do. So I needed that time to get into that headspace. And also, as like the summer is you're in a different mindset. You're in a different place, different headspace. So you needed that time. And I think that is something that we do for ourselves. It's not something that's obligatory. But I think that for myself, and I know probably for you, it's something that you need to do in order to get yourself ready for that first day so that you feel like you've done enough to prepare. And I think that that's totally valid. And I wanted to mention that the first day that I went back to school, the first day this past Monday, the only thing that I needed to do was look around the classroom. And it was hilarious because just a day or two before that, I saw a TikTok which just perfectly described what teachers do on the first day. You just kind of look around You look at everything in your room, you look at all of the desks, you look at the placement, you look at whatever is there. You're there for like maybe 2 hours just to look around and to absorb everything that needs to happen in the next 5 days. So that for me was a big part of that day one and a big part of this week to sort of grasp coming back into the classroom, because you and I have spent some time away from the classroom itself. And then for myself, I haven't been at the same school as you for 3 years, and now I'm coming back to that. So moving back into a school that I haven't been in for some time required a little bit of mental and physical preparation.
Now that I've completely butchered the banter section.
It's not butchered. It was great banter.
That wasn't banter.
Well, it wasn't banter. It was content.
We're supposed to fight. I'm supposed to say outrageous things.
We can fight.
The audience is supposed to be laughing or pausing the episode and saying there's too much Chey and Pav in this episode. Oh, sorry. That was someone else's review.
You said a couple of things before we started recording that I could pick at.
Oh, I thought you said fight me for.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah? When I was making fun of how little you deadlift?
Oh,
boy.
That's shots fired.
We'll be right back after this break. And thank you for joining us again on the Chey and Pav Show.
Get your hands up to the floor.
You're listening to the Chey and Pav Show.
And in that brief moment of the commercial, Pav shot me some nasty cut-eye and reminded me that I never come back from the gym with a story about someone commenting on my strength. But Pav has these stories every time she goes to the gym. Oh, so-and-so said this. Oh, so-and-so said that. Oh, so-and-so said this. So as much as I mocked her deadlift, Pav is a serious deadlifter. So I retract that statement.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the producer to edit that out. Pav, our banter set us up, but this episode's about goals for us returning back into, I want to say, our wheelhouse, teaching. Mm-hmm. Not that I dismissed the coaching experience, and not that I would say I wouldn't do it again. Although if I were to go back into it, I would be much more calculated, clinical, passionate about going into a job that I really think best suits the skill set I have.
Yeah.
Not that the coach's job I had last year didn't, but of course that job no longer exists. Now I could go and do a little banter.
Yeah.
We take those 100 jobs, we dismantle them, we reassemble them for 30 jobs with a whole new job description, and then you wonder why the coach's profession has tough time legitimizing itself, because everyone, once you've seen it from afar, you realize this coaching position is going to last for 16 seconds, then I'm going to dismantle it for 4 seconds, and then I'm going to pretend that it's working. It's not going to work that way if you don't hold on to it, but there's my banter out of order. But Pav, let's get to our goals for the year as we drive back into the classrooms, you back into Beaumont, and maybe talk a little bit about how we prepped in that week before to get ourselves set up for the year.
All right. So I can begin when it comes to...
Hold on. You're going to begin during my time to talk, or is
Sure.
this your time to talk?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. Now I'm scared.
I don't run this show. No one for 1 second thinks that I have any say in how this show lays out.
All right. Well, then I'll begin.
Of course, assumed.
Yes, and as I mentioned before, as you have mentioned, I am back at teaching with you again, reunited, and it feels so good. And it's really nice. I am teaching grade 6 this year, but I am something that's a little bit different for you and I both, is the school has employed a team teaching approach. So I have a grade team partner, and she and I will be splitting the content. So I will be teaching only math and science, and then physical education and health and visual arts for my own class, but math and science for 2 classes. So that's a little bit different. It's a bit of a challenge. There are some pros and cons, I think, to my own experience of splitting up subjects in this way. and which I'll get into in a moment. But I'm excited about this because it gives me an opportunity to really dedicate my learning and my growth to two particular subject areas and plan very dedicatingly to those two areas. And I know already that I have some ideas of what I would like to do with my own learning and for my teaching of math and science this year, primarily humanizing those two subjects a little bit more. I know that Chey and I have talked a lot about humanizing math, humanizing science before, and a lot of our learning that we've had done, a lot of learning from Sunil Singh, which is where we first kind of came across this idea of the humanization of math. And that's something that I'd really like to do this year. This is an opportunity that I feel like I have that I wouldn't normally have if I was teaching every subject, every core subject during the year. I have an opportunity to really zero in and focus on how I would like to humanize math. And I think that what we have learned and what I have learned and what I've been trying to practice a little bit more of is that comes from stories. And humanizing math through stories is sometimes very challenging to do, but it's not impossible, especially if we approach it from a culturally relevant perspective. And so for myself, that is where I will be going this year, is taking a look at STEM subjects, STEAM subjects, and taking a look at mathematics and what they look like in the rest of the world, what they look like historically, and how the students that I have sitting in front of me can connect with those subjects in a way that perhaps they haven't had the opportunity to do so before. Of course, I'd love to integrate podcasting into that. I have never actually done math podcasting or science podcasting. I know that you've done some of that this past year, Chey, but I haven't delved into that very much. So that's very exciting for me. And of course, getting students to really talk and think during math. So building thinking classrooms is some professional development that we've received this past year with Peter Liljedahl. And so I'm very excited to implement that more so in the classroom space. Of course, as a coach, it's a little bit different the way that we were able to implement this learning last year. But this year, I have the ability to do that from start to finish. And I've set up the classroom to be able to do that. And so I'm excited to do that. So that's a little snippet of some of my big goals for this year. And there are others which we can get into a little bit later.
Those are some fantastic goals. Thank you for the shout out, because Jim Guy, he sure did, eh? Like, I put in that math podcast, and a lot of science podcast, and people used to think I was just Jim Guy.
You're not just Jim Guy. It's been a while.
Been a while since I've referenced that.
Yeah, that's
but it's,
right.
You know, it's my Michael Jordan moment. If I feel like getting angry, I just remember the time I was identified by my administrators just as Jim Guy in this community.
That's right.
And all the PE listeners, well, they don't listen to our podcast because they listen to podcasts specific to PE, physical education. But one or two of them are. We'll be like,
yeah, there's a few.
They're getting fired up. Mm-hmm. Pav, I'm going to comment on one of the things you talked about, because this scheduling model is new for the school we're at. Our school has fluctuated multiple ways. It's done a full rotary. And when COVID hit, it's gone to non-rotary. And then this year's this, you call this sort of team teaching. I sort of thought of it as like a hybrid rotary. Mm-hmm. Pairing up with one class. I think scheduling wise, it makes it easier than, say, because I've had years where I teach the same subject to 5 different classes.
Yeah, let me just correct myself. Actually, I don't like the term team teaching for this. It's what I have heard being used in the school. This is not my definition of team teaching.
Okay, I don't like team teaching either. I agree.
No, I like team teaching. I don't like this being the description of team teaching, but this is what it's been referred to as. But yes, I would describe it as modified rotary as well.
And so when you talked about that, at first I was sort of like, I'm not sure. Now, at some of the schools I was coaching at, they had this particular model. And from the coach's perspective, that my take on whether it worked or didn't work is not the same thing that I'm thinking as a teacher. And I was thinking, I felt like, I'm going to miss that chance to totally connect with my class because I won't have them as much as I want to have them. I'm like, I won't be able to deviate off course as much as I want because I'll have to be more confined to the time, the rotary, making sure getting things done. I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel a little bit of pressure to make sure I match. So maybe I have a great morning and then not necessarily my students are drifting in the afternoon. Maybe I'm drifting. Maybe I'm a little slower. Maybe I don't have the same fire in the afternoon on a certain day. But I realize, I can't just sort of debrief with the class and wind it down, change the pace. The pace and the flows almost has to match a little bit. And so those are some of my fears of that schedule.
Yeah, that's something that I would agree with as well. That was one of the cons I think that I had thought of, is that you don't have the freedom of time. And you don't have that same energy when you repeat a particular lesson. And perhaps there are different interruptions that kind of hit and it throws off the scheduling a little bit.
I'm not sure if repeating the lesson slows me down a little bit. And I'll reference last year when I was doing some coaching and working with some great teachers, is that was the model they had. And I actually found to teach it the second time was great. It's sort of like when I deadlift. The first deadlift's pretty good, but I'm banking on the second deadlift to be even better. And I actually found that I taught better the second time through.
Right.
The energy might be different.
Right.
And so I was talking more of like that energy. I was just putting that on me as the teacher one day. There's like
Sure.
a little bit more pressure to make sure you're doing the same things, matching a little bit.
And
or at
then
least
also the dynamic of the class is different. No two classes are going to be the same either. So that's something that ties into it as well. So I think that's a fair thing to say.
certainly last year, and you're absolutely right on the dynamic. I knew that when I taught it the first time through, you no matter how well you plan everything, something doesn't work right. And the ability to do it twice is, I always feel that the first class, they missed out on how I taught it the second time because they became the guinea pigs for how this lesson was going to
That's
go.
right.
And then I made the modifications over lunch to be ready for the afternoon. And that brings me sort of similar idea, but when I started to plan this year in that first week, I started to realize I'm not getting overwhelmed thinking I've got to produce A plus, B plus lessons for 18,000 different subjects. I realize that this type of schedule alleviates not my workload, because I'm still working, but I'm maximizing the work I'm doing because it's all focused in the same strands, all focused in the same area. I know I'm duplicating it. And so I'm paying a little bit more attention to the books I'm crafting. I'm paying a little bit more attention to my possible exit tickets. I'm already building my guided reading. All of a sudden, my focus is just laser focused. And I'm like, this is really going to help my students because it's really going to help me to be really purposeful and really deviate all my energy into a smaller amount of subjects. And one thing I always talked about before when I was a teacher, you know what? I wouldn't deliver 8 great lessons a day. I couldn't. I
Right.
didn't have the energy for that.
It's not possible.
No. So
No.
why do you use a booklet? Well, I use a booklet because I have just used my A+ material for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I've mentioned this podcast once where I actually had students ask for just a booklet.
Yeah.
Mr. Cheney.
Can we just have some downtime?
Yeah, can you just have a booklet? Can we just work at our desk with a booklet? Please, Mr. Cheney, looking, I know you got a booklet in there somewhere. Find
Yeah.
us a booklet. And I delivered.
Yeah. You know what? And that's absolutely fair. And you're 100% right. When you're talking about teacher burnout and what teachers are able to do, teaching 8 subjects is a lot. And to put in that kind of time, to intentional time to create really great units and great lessons, it's just not possible, especially if you're moving schools, if you're moving grades and subjects constantly. This is near impossible to do. I get it for teachers. Actually, I won't even say that I get it for teachers that teach the same content, the same grade year after year after year. I did that for almost 10 years. I taught the same grade, and every single year I developed new material and new content. Very rarely did I reuse the exact same thing in the exact same way as the prior year. So it is a lot of work planning and prepping for school. You could be doing this 24 hours a day. It's absolutely impossible. So 100% I agree with you. I am very excited about the amount of time that I get to plan for just 2 subjects. And I'm not not to say that I'm not thinking about the other two subjects that I'm planning for, physical education and visual arts, but that I am hoping to be able to tie those two subjects into the math and science as much as possible. And so that is where my headspace is. And I'm really excited to try some new things this year and really take this opportunity and make the most of it, because it may not happen again next year. It may not happen, a couple of years down the road. So this is a real chance to build my own capacity in teaching math and science this year. So that I'm very excited about. Is there anything else, Chey, that you want to work on? I have another thing that I'd like to bring up if you've got nothing else at this moment.
Nah, what do I got to work on? You give me a trained professional.
No, or any other goals or anything about this topic that we have been on that we missed mentioning.
Well, when you speak, you never miss anything.
I'm not talking about me. I was talking about you.
Well, it's assumed I'm going to miss a lot. This is why you always speak first and last. It covers all the gaps. When Pav, you were talking about your goals, and so my fears going into this year is that connection to classroom, my homeroom, because it's a homeroom, but ultimately it's paired. So I have them for a few additional extra periods like physical education, etc., and art, which I know are great subjects to build relationships as is every subject. I don't need a fancy handshake outside the door to build a relationship with a student. Mm-hmm. I can have a fancy handshake if you want, but I'm also getting to the age where you can't expect me to remember a handshake for 30 different kids.
Yeah, that's hard.
When you're a young teacher, you better. You better. You're young.
I couldn't even do it then.
You're 25. You don't look at me and say you forgot. But
the best I had was 3.
It is socially acceptable for me now that I can't remember anything, and no one could say, but nah. I'm at the age.
You're at the age. You earned it.
That's 100%. What are we talking about again? Sorry, I forgot. Just GMA. I have some goals. Mm-hmm. Because this language, as much as everyone thinks I'm just a gym guy, I actually don't have my gym credentials. I actually have my reading specialist credentials. Mm-hmm. You heard it right there, folks. Replay that episode. I have my adolescent reading credentials, not my gym guy credentials. And Pav, you talked about that. There's certain resources I still use from 20 years ago, like Kylene Beers for one, but it's always adapting, evolving, changing. Now, there's certain great units. I think of my digital photography unit that I've connected to my Read Aloud. I still do that, and I came up with that probably 15 years ago. I would argue it was landmark 15 years ago. Like, schools didn't have an iPad, and to create that took a lot of work back then. It's a little easier to do now, and I still engage in it, and it's still a great task, but it still is a equally great task.
Right.
15 years later.
But it's evolved over those 15 years, right? The content has evolved, so it's not always the same novel per se. And also the technology has evolved, so you're able to integrate more into that. But then I also want to add that there are some things that you don't need to constantly revamp over and over again. If it's something that works, use it and do it.
Yes, the digital photography. Maybe what's changed is the access. More students typically have more of their own smartphones. They have access to more of these apps. You can, work around with your Chromebook. So I think when I go back how I used to do it much more group oriented. Now students still work in groups now, but they're able to all produce their own photo just based on their accessibility to technology. I comment on that because that's a staple that I know I'm gonna bring back. But I want to start using graphic novels with more purpose this year. You know what? I've always tried to, I can't say I've learned to honor reading on many different levels, broaden the definition of what reading is. But I also realized that I've never bought graphic novels, as much as I can honor it and tell kids they can read it, but I never bring it back into the space for a guided reading session on a graphic novel. I've never used it as a read aloud. And I said, I want to be really purposeful with graphic novels, not just a section in the learning common space or the library, but rather I want to have, if I have dedicated guided reading sets, if I have a dedicated class novel set, I want dedicated graphic novels. And so I did find some online, which are great, but I also want those physical copies. So I haven't totally mastered what I want to do with it yet, but I know that I want to bring in graphic novels with purpose. So that idea of honoring the graphic novel, it's not just honoring because I allow them, I'm honoring them because I'm doing something with them.
And I gotta say that graphic novels, like there have been a lot more authors that have been creating fantastic graphic novels that can be used in the classroom. I'm thinking about Borders by Thomas King. Incredible way to incorporate Indigenous learning in the classroom through the use of graphic novels. And then there's another one I think called Troublemaker by John Cho, which is taking a look at Asian culture and Asian perspectives in the classroom. And this is ways that we can integrate graphic novels into learning that's already happening in the class. So amazing idea. And I love the idea of that. Makes me miss teaching language arts.
Like we could switch one day.
Sure. Yeah. It was just like April Fool's Day or something.
You've been fooled. Mr. Cheney's going to try and teach you math.
That's right.
Turn on the internet, kids. Let's go. I can only teach math as long as the World Wide Web is in full function.
That's not true. You know it.
Shh.
Don't tell the masses.
Actually, I could go on another rant again that early on in my career, I so played up to the gym guy routine that it became school knowledge that I wasn't very good at teaching math. I said, that's actually not true. I just was never assigned math. And then it's funny how if you're not teaching something, all of a sudden that becomes your reputation, you can't teach math.
But did you play into that a little bit so that you wouldn't have to teach
100%.
math?
No way I
Of course
want
you
to teach
did.
math. Mr. J doesn't teach very good history. I got a history honors degree, but you just don't assign me history, so I just don't teach it.
And then I further pretend that I don't know how so that you won't give it to me.
Yeah, like George Washington was like a really good prime minister, eh? Like I think he was the first. You might maybe he was the second.
All right.
We Video.
Yeah.
And so We Video is a space where I would like to get students to use more quickly in the year to be greater content creators earlier in the year. Not that I'm skipping the idea of consumption, interaction, content creation, but I was thinking at the beginning of the year where I want to use my empathy map, but I also want students to make a 30-second commercial about who they are on We Video.
Love that idea.
And I hadn't done that before. Often I build so gradually into the tech that sometimes I realize I get into some of these content creation spaces a little bit too late, and I want to get into them a little bit earlier. So I want to maximize, because our board has full access to that suite of software. And so graphic novels, I want to use We Video a little bit more. And we already talked about it, Pav. I just want to make sure I'm stories. There's a story to bring in every space about learning. So even if it's about why should we use a period rather than just when we're writing UH, no, we can replace UH with a period. I want to have a story that goes with it too.
Oh, that would be a fun one to find.
Yeah.
Maybe the dot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love that idea. I think that's great to bring more stories. That is essentially what I want to be able to do in math and science. And I think that traditionally we think that that's going to be a challenge because there aren't as many math or science stories. And I'm not necessarily thinking about story books like there are books out there that I could read about math and science topics. Yes, there are a bunch of those out there, and there are great authors that are constantly putting out more content that we can be using in class. But earlier today, I was listening to a podcast, and they used the guest on the show used a term that I'm very familiar with. But
yes, go on.
But I would venture to guess that many people in our school system, even teachers, even perhaps yourself, Chey, don't know this word.
C'est incroyable. It's not possible. That's impossible. Tom Cruise. That's impossible. That's impossible.
So I'm going to ask you, do you know what the word?
Hold on. Are we going to edit this episode?
We can.
No. I need to know this before I go and answer this question.
Okay, yes. I will edit if it goes south.
That was 10 minutes ago.
Do you know the meaning of the word lack? L-A-K-H.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
You lack skill. All you do is you lack. The ground ball comes to you third and you olay it.
Okay.
That's an easy one. Don't need to edit this at all. I know lots of people that lack.
That's L-A-C-K.
Edit that part out.
No, I'm keeping that. It was funny. L-A-K-H. Do you know what that word means?
It's not funny when I watch my third base and olay it.
Can you just answer the question?
I
Do you
have
know
no
what
idea. You don't. as a teacher, you already know that I didn't know based on the bombastic way in which I answered it wrong.
Yes, because I have a relationship with you. I know, and I know that I can push you further. I wouldn't do that to a student. But lakh is in Indian currency, or the Indian place value system is 100,000.
Oh, I didn't say that?
That's what I
thought
said.
that's what I said.
Okay, so
I didn't know that. Please go on.
For myself, and for a lot of South Asian children, this is like common knowledge, but it's very different from the place value system that you would be used to in Canada, right? So it goes 1,000. Like, so the first block of 3 is a place value, like a block, and then the next set of 3 zeros would be another one. Then that's million. But in India, the comma is in different places. And I grew up where that was just like, yeah, okay, we're talking like the comma is in these odd spaces. I know we're looking at Indian currency. I know that we're not looking at Canadian currency. So I'm thinking a lot about, wow, that's something for me. That was hearing that word, someone say 50 lakhs. For me, that makes perfect sense. That's 100,000. But that makes no sense in Canadian math. So for me, that is a great connection that I could bring into the classroom, and there might be some students that understand what I'm talking about, and then there might be some that are thinking, oh, I never knew that other parts of the world had different place value systems in math.
It's such a great way to honor people's experience with math, their ethnicity with math, their culture with math, inviting them to bring that in. That sounds, as much as you bring that up, I could already visualize how you could bring this into class.
And so I had that little bit of an aha moment this morning when I was listening, because that word just kind of went into the conversation, and I didn't even think anything of it until I did think of it. And I did say to myself, oh, I wonder if the students would be familiar with that word or other words in Indian languages that represent the place value system.
So 50 lakh would be 50,000?
No, 100,000.
100,000.
So that would be 5 million?
Is that what the CBC is paying us to sign us for season 5 of the Chey and Pav
50
Show?
lakhs, yes. I would accept that.
Hey, well, only one of us has been on the CBC.
No, is going to be. We don't even know if it's going to happen yet.
You can edit that part out. But yeah, you missed it, folks, because this episode went live Monday and Pav was on CBC live Tuesday.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can guess who was invited to the CBC.
Actually, you handed it to me, and
they were looking for a veteran teacher.
Yeah.
And a novice teacher. And so obviously they picked you as the seasoned veteran. And then I said I could play the role of new teacher. And the CBC lady, I'm going to forget her name. Selma, yes. Jokingly said, "You're a little bit too confident."
In the way you speak. It was right on the nose. I was like, wow, you got that out of a 3-minute conversation with us. That's fantastic.
I left the chat then.
Yeah. But back to the topic that we were discussing, math stories. And this is just a small example of the many ways that we can tie in culturally relevant stories to math and science. I've done a lesson in the past with the help of a colleague who taught me a lot about the history of algebra. And then I, went into my own learning about the history of algebra and the impact of Arabic speaking countries on the math that we use today. And so, and then there's a great site, Mathagon, where it provides you a history of math on a timeline, an interactive timeline, which is fantastic to take a look at. And I usually have students go and kind of explore this timeline and find something that they want to share with the class that they learned about how math has impacted our progress as a society and what parts of the world that math was coming from. And many times students are shocked that math wasn't invented by, the modern math that we do today. And a lot of parts of the math that we do today were not constructs of North America or of England or, all of the European countries, that they have really utilized this learning from different parts of the world. And this is the kind of learning that I'd like to bring to students, because I think it helps students to connect a little bit more to the math that they are learning, and also feel a little bit more pride, perhaps, if there is some representation there that they can make connections with as well. And so even if that connection allows them a little bit more interest to dive more into the learning, I think that is a check mark of accomplishment. And so I think that's something that I'd like to do a little bit more this year.
You're turning math into something more than just hocus pocus magic of here's the formula and let's make a calculation, Pav.
Oh, you
and
mean
I think
back to basics? More than the back to basics?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's inviting for students. So maybe if someone doesn't perceive themselves as a math student, that this is a way of breaking that down, because of course we all talk about, we have to make sure that every student sees themselves as a math student, but how do you actually do it?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing to do it? Not just
Right.
saying it in some staff meeting. What are you actually doing in your class that makes everyone feel like they're a math student? Well,
Yeah.
your math story, your math history is being displayed or shown or talked about, or you're being invited to share those stories. Math classes that don't necessarily function with calculations are a great way to sort of break down the myths of what a math class can be.
That's right.
And it's those myths that often turn students off, or I can't get the calculation. I can't get this magic to work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And
100%.
it's not about lacking.
It's not about lacking. Well played.
Clever, eh?
Yeah, very clever.
I must have looked that up on Google. Pav, we've really talked about our goals, our sort of excitement for this school year, our sort of dabbled a little bit about the schedule. Why don't we go to commercial? And we come back, and maybe I'll talk a little about what was my preparation like.
Okay.
And sort of, it's like a reverse episode, but ultimately, this episode is a reintroduction to Chey and Pav.
That's right. It's been a really long time, ladies
The
and
last
gentlemen.
episode we had, I could only hit the ball 290 feet for
Oh
450.
my gosh. Sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Is this my time to speak?
It is your time. I'll edit that out.
Your time to speak is just you. My time to speak is you and I 50-50.
Yes.
I overstand. And we'll be right back on the Chey and Pav Show.
Overstand. I like that.
Get your hands up to the floor.
And you're listening to the Chey and Pav Show. And this episode is brought to you by Sticky Notes. Because when the World Wide Web collapses, all you need is a sticky note to teach the next lesson.
Get your hands up to the floor.
And you're listening to the Chey and Pav Show. All right, folks, we're glad you're still here 42 minutes in. We guess we call this the third quarter, but really it's the third period because we're about to end this game
Yep.
on a walk-off.
Oh.
Can I tell you a little banter story about a walk-off that we were playing some softball team? And, of course, the Chey and Pav Show sponsors the select softball team. And in this particular moment, there was confusion in the score, and so we were walking off the field, and the other coach lost his mind because we were walking off. How dare us walk off? I said,
Oh.
"Bro, the ump told us to leave the field."
Yeah. So then what happened?
I blasted him.
Oh.
Yeah.
You let him know what's what?
Yeah, he went on and on and on, and he was all over the umpire, and I finally screamed, "Stop being so desperate to be a victim.
Oh.
Score is incorrect. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to walk back on the field." No one walked off the field. You haven't been disrespected, my friend. You haven't been. It's softball. Honestly. And your team's not even sponsored by the Chey and Pav Show, so go back
That's
to your
right.
dugout. When you got our emblem on your sleeve, then you can walk out. And, I wouldn't disrespect anyone, even with our emblem on our sleeve, but you were nobody.
Okay.
Who's sponsoring your team? Not the Chey and Pav Show.
Not the Chey and Pav
Turn
Show.
around.
Yeah.
You lucky we coming back.
You're fired up.
It must be a new episode.
It's been a long time.
Pav, I wanted to talk about, when we came back, wanted to talk about sort of what was my prep.
Yeah.
And I got into that rant before. I'm going to misuse the term, but I think my misuse of the term, everyone understands. Not gaslight nobody. I know you can't stand when I misuse. You have sent me so many definitions and videos. You use it wrong.
You just want to say it. I'm not shaming anybody. Just say shaming.
I did. Gaslight.
No, that's not what it means.
I am going to expand and extend and alter the vernacular of gas. In 10 years, everyone will know gaslighting as I identified it here today.
Okay. I hope everybody's keeping notes, like when they listen to us with all of Chey's terminology. There's a dictionary. That's what we need to publish next.
But you know my antics so well that you often look at me and say, you don't need to explain yourself. I know what you meant. Usually that's in reference to spelling.
Oh my gosh. That's usually your text.
You don't worry. Don't correct the word. I got it figured out what you were trying to say.
I got it.
Pav, my preparations. I actually plan out my 5 days. And like I told you at the beginning, for me, it's peace of mind to make sure I was there physically 5 days, just in the space. You talked about the first day about being that day to come in and look. Mine's all about furniture allocation.
Right.
How many students do I have? How many chairs do I have? How many desks do I have? How many clipboards do I have? How many white books do I have? How many notebooks do I have? How many pencils do I have? How many erasers do I have? It's all about the numbers. But of course, we all know the number you have on Monday, no one wants to tell you the number officially because it's going to change by 7 by the following Monday. And so it's always plus or minus 5. So that first day, it's all about furniture. Second day, it's all about tech. I got to track down every bit of tech that I need. I got to charge it, got to test it, got to link it, got to use every adapter. I got to be good to go. This becomes one of my little rants because at the end, now I was coaching last year, so the rant doesn't necessarily apply this year, but every year I always kept my tech. You can't keep your technology. Got to hand it in, So my technology from my room this year was handed in. And guess what?
You couldn't find it.
Nobody knows where it is when it comes time to this week to find it. It could be. It could be. You want to know what would have happened if I'd been here? It would be right there in cupboard A.
Yep.
Logged in, charged. And so, tongue in cheek, I go a little bit overboard. But I had to literally go through some rooms, go through some closets, go through some spaces. And I was given a list of 5 possible spaces where everything might be. And I found it. But it took an hour and a half to find what would have been there as it should have been there. Now, I get it. You want to have a central hub space. But if you're not allocating someone on the entry week to be in charge of that space yet again to distribute, I know if you're not teaching, you can comfortably start on Tuesday and Wednesday. But if you're teaching, I can't comfortably not have things on Tuesday morning. I need to comfortably have it a week before. So technology, took care of technology. 3, resources. I want my books. I want my read aloud books. I want my guided reading books. And I want my history books. I want to have access to all the things I want to use. I want to have the stores I'm going to have. And now you can take my rant for technology, remove the word technology, and insert resources, and then repeat.
Right.
My room was all the resources were given back. And then it's like, where's this resource? Where's this resource? Where's this resource? That could be here, could be here, could be here. Not sure. We'll have to wait till so-and-so. So you don't know where it is? Let me go looking. I found it, but I spent my day looking. But that's why I planned day 3 for resources. My audience, my grand audience. Take it in tongue in cheek. I'm just being, over the top for it boosts our ratings.
It does. It works. Keep going.
That last day is all about not the tech, but it's the online. The creation of the Google Space, the Google Classroom. Now I've been dabbling with maybe I should get away from the Google Space to the Bright Space and the Microsoft Space because I think the rumors are flying that we are about to move away from those platforms. So I pondered getting into those platforms, and then I said, forget it. And so building those spaces, building those documents, building those empathy maps, those things that are going to be in that sort of Chromebook space.
Yeah.
And then my last day, I call it my float day. I just want to be there on Friday.
Yeah.
Just want to be there.
Even if it's for like an hour, 2 hours, just be there to, if there's anything left that I didn't do it.
Wasn't real important, but I labeled all my lockers, so I did the 30. And then what I noticed in my lockers is that all the students at the end of last year, now they would have been in my class to start the year, but didn't finish. They all decided to sign each other's locker like it's a yearbook.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cute. But I got to deal with it. It's kind of cute.
Like
kind of cute.
outside?
No, inside. You open up
Oh,
the door and
inside.
there's like 9 signatures. Oh, blah, 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 so-and-so,
Oh,
2013.
with
blah,
like
blah, blah.
Sharpies?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And funny, I had a few students in this week helping me, and I said, so tell me, how long were you all unsupervised? Did no one notice 15 of you writing in all your lockers for 25 minutes?
Oh, my gosh.
Again, tongue-in-cheek. But
Yeah.
it was kind of cute, so
Oh.
I had to work on that. But that was my float day.
That was your... And so those were your 5 days.
Yeah.
You are what people, my audience would call a type A teacher.
Is that sort of like an alpha?
No, not quite.
Oh.
You wish.
But yeah, that's right. I'm not
Yeah.
an alpha.
Not in this case. You are a type A personality when it comes to this prep. I, my friend, is what you would call a type B person, where you gave me everything that I needed for the first week of school. I just went in to go and talk to everyone. I was there every day, but did I have a plan? Absolutely not. Am I ready for the first day of school? Likely no. but I talked to everyone. I looked around the room. I did arrange the desks, and I also have to say that I was very lucky. I have I was asked if I would like to host a teacher candidate this year, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? And so my teacher candidate is coming to me from University of Toronto, and part of the practicum is to help the host teacher set up their classroom. So I had a host teacher as well. So I had like a list of 3 things that I wanted to do this week, and I got them done like on day 1. I was just in the rest of the week to kind of unbox books, and then I like cleaned out my house. I was like, what can I take to school? What can I take from my home to my school? So that I don't have as much clutter at home.
I tell you what you brought, your 2022 Excellence Award.
I did. I packed that up.
I said, I better pull mine out of the garage and get it in here too.
And so what did I do with the last 5 days? I don't even know what I did with the last 5 days. I know that I've got a plan for the first day of school.
Your room is sparkling. Desks are
It
great.
is. But I have to say that the teacher that was in the room before me did it, like left it immaculate for me, like cut out an entire day of cleaning. So I
cut out 3 years of cleaning.
Yes.
There was literally nothing.
nothing, not
except-
even a speck of dust in the drawers.
And everything that was left for you was labeled, this is for you.
Yes.
You can use this here.
Yes.
You have never gone into
No,
a room with a
never.
former teacher and seen a room the way this room was left.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it was stunning. I was shocked at how clean it was, and the supplies were all left for me like on the front table. So there was not really much for me to do. So I did go because I do like to get into the headspace. Was not necessarily planning on being there for 5 days, but I made good use of that time. But I am absolutely a fly by the seat of my pants kind of teacher. So I will go in and I will just create lessons like the day of, and I'll be like, okay, what do I want to do today? Okay, I'll just go, I'll do this and this, not all the time, but sometimes I will. I do have a plan for the first 2-3 days of the school
You don't
year.
podcast like this.
No, I do not. Because I guess it's because of my comfort level in the classroom. I feel like once I get into the flow, I have a good handle on things. I generally build a good rapport with students, and I know that the first day back is going to be all about that. It's about introductions. It's about getting to know each other, and I know from past years that takes more time than I think it's going to take in my head. So I know that I'm not going to rush through anything, and I have 2-3 activities planned for the first couple of periods. I have a couple of things planned for the afternoon, and I'm good. Like, I'm good to get started. I have no tech. I'll figure all of that out. The students are one-to-one with their Chromebooks, and so they're going to be bringing their own Chromebooks in from home. So we'll deal with that as it comes. So there's those types of things that I'm not as worried about. Math resources, whatever. I can figure that out when I need to figure that out. So there's, I am 100% type B. And I think that those that are listening are probably like, yeah, that's pretty clear. But I'm very grateful, Chey, to all of the things that you passed over to me to use for the first week. You did a lot of that legwork for me, which is something that type B personalities do, is they take from...
I've never shared so many docs or slide decks in all my life as I did those first 3 days.
I was like, oh, Chey, thank you. This is great. I can use this.
Which is you're talking about that, and I'm sort of nodding my head in agreement with it. But this so changes as the year goes on.
Yeah, it does. It's not the same. It's I am not like making a joke about the way that I teach.
And you're never asking me for stuff.
No, I don't. Generally, I do come up with a lot of my things, but the first couple of days of school for me are usually pretty relaxed. Like I used to be a lot more nervous, but I think I'm much more comfortable in that space now.
Pav,
I hear the music.
This has been a wonderful conversation.
It has been, yeah.
Welcome back to the Chey and Pav Show.
Thank you, and welcome back to you as well, and welcome back everybody to a new school year. We're really excited to get started, and we're really excited to document the journey and have you come along with us as we go through all of the ups and downs of teaching this new year.
There's no dithering around whether we're a coach or a teacher. We are back to our roots. We are back to where we belong, in the classroom, the teacher grind. And that's not the teachers are on the top of any pyramid, but this is where we feel at home, and we love this content to be a space to document and share and grow together collectively, because this is the Chey and Pav Show, teachers talking
Teaching.
and
You got it.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.